Absolutely incredible. Supra 2.0 has been unveiled. 500,000 TPs with Auto-DeFi, meaning without human error. What if DeFi is no longer controlled by humans, but by the protocol itself? 500,000 transactions per second, sub-second finality, and automatic liquidation. Even automatic yield optimization. That is incredible. And all of this without traditional bridges. Supra claims to deliver exactly that in 2026. So is Supra 2.0 the next evolutionary stage of DeFi? Or is it just another high-performance promise? Let's break down the technology together. Hi, I'm Marius from 10x Invest, and today we'll analyze it together. Supra in March 2026. I only have confirmed updates here and only real technical developments that I have researched for you. We'll talk about the Moonshot Consensus, meaning 500,000 TPS MultiVM bridgeless Auto-DeFi for native automation. And we'll take a look at whether this setup will also become relevant for institutions. And at the end, we'll also take a look at the price setup, because performance alone is not enough. Let's move on to part 1, 500,000 TPS. According to the roadmap, Supra 1.0 also achieves up to 500,000 transactions per second thanks to the Moonshot Consensus. Formally, they are certified, which is important, not just fast, but also mathematically verified. A finality of under 1 second, they have around 300 nodes. This is definitely a strong infrastructure. But the crucial difference lies in the MultiVM model. Because Supra supports, among others, EVM, MultiVM, SVM, and Cosmos VASM. This naturally enables interoperability without traditional bridges, and a connection to over 58 other blockchains, Ethereum, for example, Polygon, Aptos, but also an additional integration of Layer 0 and a hyperlane for permissionless cross-chain. This definitely reduces bridge risks and increases capital mobility, but Supra 2.0 goes even further. Let's move on to Auto-DeFi without human error. Supra 2.0 introduces a so-called Patrial fee market. The goal is to reduce MEV, that is, to protect against front-running. In other words, they want to ensure fair price formation. At the same time, native automation mechanisms are being introduced, multiple times per second, on-chain. This ultimately means automatic liquidation, automatic market sensing, and yield optimization block by block. And over 500 Oracle feeds per block provide the price data. This is crucial because many DeFi projects fail due to human reaction time, but Supra is trying to minimize this source of error. With protocol logic, not with bots, but with additional super containers. And native apps with integrated oracles and automation, this is quasi a new design paradigm. But of course, this raises a strategic question. Will institutional DeFi rely on this automation, or will they remain conservative? Let's move on to point 3, adoption and the community. They already have over 500,000 members, partnerships with Layer 0, Polygon and Aptos, and a $1 million bounty program for the parallel EVM challenges, which has been active since November 2025. They are also testing MultiVM scaling under real-world conditions. The focus is therefore clear. Institutional DeFi, verified finality, and anti-MEV mechanisms, meaning fast oracles and positioning as a faster, more efficient Web3. The focus is on trading, for example, but also on RWAs and of course AI oracles. That is of course a strong narrative. But now the question is of course, what does the market say? Let's now move on to the chart analysis of Supra. Where does the potential lie? Yes, hello and welcome to the chart analysis of Supra. Let's take a look at it first. Here was the start, and it rose massively if you take a look at it. Extremely, and where we are now from a chart perspective, as you can see here, is actually classic for altcoins. But if you look at the bigger picture, we've dropped down a lot. But now let's take a look at how things stand at the moment. Basically, we've seen a continuous downward trend here, which isn't good. As I said, with altcoins, you have to look at things a bit more differentiated. The current situation is definitely like this. If we now switch to the daily chart, which for me is always more meaningful, then we can see here that we already had a bearish trend reversal up here. The indicator then shows a small red dot. A bearish trend reversal then also occurred. After the indicator showed that, let's take a look, roughly, that was around here. We then dropped another 68.5%, so that's extreme. What does it look like at the moment? We actually formed a big green dot. That means we were oversold. You could see it here, we were absolutely oversold. This ultimately presented an entry point here. Let's take a look. If you had entered here, that would have actually been roughly in this area, in this range. That would be, if you take this point, about 21%. Exactly, we moved up. That means we still have some room to move up here. Here, we would then become overbought. Ultimately, this is more like the middle range here. Here is oversold. So at the moment, we're more in the middle range, which is always a bit suboptimal. But let's take a look at the whole picture on the weekly chart. On the weekly chart, it doesn't look so good. We had a red dot here. So on the weekly chart itself, we're seeing more of a sell-off in the longer term. On the daily chart, as I said, things look positive in the short term, but not so good in the long term. On the 4-hour chart, it looks like we formed a small green dot. Here, we also pushed upwards. In the end, here is where the green dot formed, roughly. There you go. We went up by 11%, but now we're heading back down. Let's take another look at the daily chart. So from my side, as far as chart analysis goes, I would be extremely cautious with Supra at the moment, or with altcoins in general. By the way, I've already made a video about Bitcoin showing the current situation there. It looks bullish. My chart showed a different picture. I'm going to be cautious. I'll link the video up there on the right. Yes, as I said, with Supra, I would be cautious at the moment. When do I, so to speak, for example, do DCA into altcoins, but also Bitcoin? Or if you want to use the indicator yourself, I'll link it here as well. Ultimately, you can scan a QR code or use it yourself for your analyses via the video description. Now I'll give a brief summary of Supra. So Supra 2.0 actually focuses on 3 core areas: extreme scalability, formal security, and automated DeFi. 500,000 TPS. MultiVM without bridges and an anti-MEV design. Technologically, that's really ambitious. But the explosion here doesn't just depend on technical data, but above all on institutional capital, and whether Supra can position itself strategically here. If you want to see the full analysis of Supra, including price scenarios up to 2030, I'll link Supra for you here. Thank you very much for watching and see you soon.